So this is the right hoof from a horse called Mr. M, and I've taken what's called horizontal slices from the coronary band down to as far as I can go at the moment towards the sole. And you can see I've got quite a lot of slices here. I just want to quickly show you the number of slices that we've got here, because it is starting to become a bit difficult for me to remember where I am, and I've numbered them all now so I know where I am. The point is, between these different slices there's actually not a lot of extra information to show you, because we're only a little slice further down, probably 2 or 3 millimeters it could be in some cases, like this one here, and there's not a lot of extra information. But what I'm going to do is I'm just going to go through the slices with you so that you don't feel that you've missed out on anything. Well, the very first slice that I took, I literally just took it off the top of the coronary band, and you can see there's not a lot of information in that. There's not a lot of material taken away. I haven't gone into great details with this one because I've taken the navicular bone out, and there is a video on this where I've got the navicular bone and the short pastern in place, so I haven't gone into this slice in much detail. Let's just have a quick look at the other side of this slice, because this is just going to be, oh gosh, probably 1/4 centimetre from the coronary band at the back here, and from the front, from the toe area, it's probably 1 centimetre down, and this is what we're seeing. Remember, I've taken out the navicular bone, and that's why we've got a gap there, but we can see the coffin bone is through here, and then we have a ligament that's here. That's a ligament that just inserts in the front right and left hand side of the coffin bone. So these are the lamina coming around here. This is the digital cushion through that part, and this is the cartilage, the collateral cartilage. Now what we can see in this view, we can see the extensive blood supply that actually runs through that cartilage. It crosses through and it crosses back, and it's a very important blood supply. It's called a venous plexus, and plexus means a network of blood vessels. And these blood vessels have an important role to play in the hydraulics of the foot, basically. It's all to do with energy dissipation and moving blood around the foot. And there's lots of hypotheses out there about the way the blood moves, and I wouldn't even dare to go into that at the moment, because it's just, for me, it just sounds a bit just so complicated, and all the different ideas. The take-home message is that the foot is highly vascular, means it's got a massive blood supply. And if you look on the internet, you'll see some amazing pictures of the blood supply within the foot. And this just goes to show you part of that blood supply crossing over and backwards and forwards in between these two surfaces here and going through the collateral cartilages. Now apparently this blood supply doesn't feed the collateral cartilages. It's not there to actually feed it or nurture it. It's literally just a channel that goes through. And I find that really hard to accept and to understand, but that's what is said in the literature and in the books. It just passes through. Let's have a look at the next slice down, which is this one here. And it's basically the same as the other one, really. We can see a little bit of the collateral cartilage again, a bit of digital cushion. Here is the coffin bone round here, and that little ligament that's at the side here. But what's different is we've got a little bit of frog starting to appear. Can you see? So that's going to be the part of the collateral groove, those two fissures that are either side of the frog that are in between the bar and the frog. So this is what we're starting to see now. We're starting to see the frog that, as we know it, which is that greyish tissue. If I turn this around, so this is slice number 6, and we can see that the frog is showing a little bit more now, and like I say, this is the collateral groove of the frog. And if we follow the hoof wall round here, we can see the switchback which goes into the bar at that point there. I've already done a video on this slice number 6, so let's now look at slice number 7. So we're going more towards the sole. Here we are, slice number 7, a little bit more forward towards the sole. And things are starting to slot a little bit better into place, because this seems to look more, dare I say, normal. Now, interestingly about this particular slice, if you remember, there was a big laminitic episode, and we have got stretched lamellae through here. They're stretched, they're broken, there's not very much of a blood supply through here. Now, even though this was frozen, it looks a little bit more red than it was when I first sliced it. But this should be bright red through here. If you look through here, it's a bit pasty colour. If you look at it round there, that's the colour it should be. Now, it basically should look like raspberry jam, and that's a more healthier tissue around here, and it's more healthier because it's got the blood supply. It probably is still not a very healthy connection, but most of the ripping and most of the damage seems to be at the toe and around this part here, where the coffin bone seems to either dip down. If it's dipping down, then it's going to rip and cause damage around here, but if it's dropping, then you seem to get damage around the whole of the perimeter of the coffin bone. This is actually quite a good view at the back here, where we've got the hoof wall coming round into the beautiful bar, and strangely this sort of weirdest shape through here. I think it's just incredible that we've got this sort of like a square cut off, and it always amazes me. It doesn't matter what foot I look at, I see different things and I see similarities, and this to me looks a bit different to what I've seen before in respect to this sort of area around here, and this shape really, it seems quite an odd shape. Here we've got the digital cushion, just a little bit of digital cushion here, and now we've got the collateral groove area is starting to come in quite nicely. So this is the collateral groove, really just above the collateral groove, where it still seems to be full of frog tissue. It's quite a nice view actually of the lamina in this area at the back of the foot. They are looking more normal, dare I say. Let me zoom in for you. I think you can see quite well those little strands, those little white areas. They are the insensitive lamellae, or the epidermal lamellae, which are coming off of the hoof wall, and they should be interspaced with the dermal lamellae, or the sensitive lamellae, which are coming off of this area around here. We can see them quite nicely here, and we can see the way that they're orientated around the back of the foot. So this area, we're not quite low enough, but this would be like the seat of corn area, where the hoof wall comes round and then becomes bar. One thing I did notice with this foot is I felt that the coffin bone, which is this bone here, did have a lot of lumps and bumps out of it. I mean, there seems to be quite a big chunk out of it here. There are going to be a few holes like this, and that's relatively normal. This is just for a blood vessel, I would have thought, running through there. As I come across here, you've got quite a big blood vessel running through there, and this is a remnant of the deep digital flexor tendon here. So this blood vessel, I'm not quite sure where that's going, but it's quite a big one. I can see through there. Actually might be the one that goes in and ends up through here. Yeah, I think it is. Yeah, so it's forming up. I know where we are now. Okay, so when you look at a coffin bone and you look at the back of it, you see there's these two little holes. That's what that is. That's the hole for that blood vessel. I'm going to grab a coffin bone and show you, but that's where you can see where I'm wriggling that. It's actually making some movement in that part that looks like a hole, and that's where the terminal arch is through there. Let me just give it a wriggle. There we are. Can you see that moving? All right. And just as we come across here, we can see that the lamellae are kinked. They should be straight. They are sort of different shapes. There seems to be yellowness in between them, and there is just less blood through there. like I say, we would expect this is more healthy looking, this lovely red through here. Like I say, this is more healthy, this lovely redness through here. That's what we want to see. So this through here, I think if you just compare, you can see that there's just not a lot of blood there. And can you see the way they're all kinked? And that's a particularly similar look to what laminitis looks like. Although part of me is thinking, is it because I've done my cut and they're all pushing over? You see, because I can actually stand them back up again. Let's have a look, see if I can stand them back up. Well, sort of. Or it could be the way I've done my cuts. So we have to always be guarded when we look at anything where we've chopped it up. We can't make too many assumptions. Let me just go and get a coffin bone and show you what I mean about this area here. Looking at the back of a coffin bone now. Here it is at the side. There it is at the front. So the part that we're looking at are these two holes down here. And so the deep digital flexor tendon is going to insert in this area around here. That hole that I showed you in that slice is one of these holes through here. And I can get my probe in there. Not too far, but I can get it in a reasonable amount. That's gone in that far. And that shows you what those holes look like in the actual bone. I don't think that there's much more that I can describe to you in this slice. So let's go on to the next slice. So now we're looking at slice 8. And it has changed a little bit more, hasn't it? First of all, the digital cushion, which is through here, we're starting to see the other side round here of where the frog stay would be. So remember, if you remember, I actually took out some of the frog, which was this area here, which I needed to take it out in order to take out the digital cushion. I had to take out some of the frog, which meant taking out some of the frog stay from here in order to get the navicular bone out. But what we're seeing is the beautiful digital cushion around here, which goes into the back of the frog. And we know that the frog's got those two luscious cushion type areas either side of the collateral groove. And we know that the frog's got these two luscious puffy areas which are either side of the central sulcus. And that is what we're looking at here. That's the inside of the frog. And so we're seeing a lot more frog around here, and we're just starting to see daylight. Well, not so much daylight, but we're seeing the crack. We've got to the very top of the collateral groove at this point. So there's actually quite a lot of frog in this horse, which is sitting there at the top of that collateral groove, which is actually quite comforting really, because if you've had thrush in your horse's feet and you've looked at the collateral grooves, these two parts either side of the frog, it can seem very, very deep, and thrush can get right in there. And I've done dissections where thrush has eaten this all away and it's started to get into sensitive tissue, so it's actually quite refreshing to see this amount of frog. The back of the foot here looks really stunningly beautiful. We've got the beautiful hoof wall coming round here. This will be like the heel purchase, that lovely triangle area there, and then coming round into the bar at this point. And we've got this really strange looking area through here. And I think this is all part of the bar and the sole interface. So I wouldn't think for the life of me that this is actually bar. I think bar ends about here, and then this is probably sole. And I think this is why it looks so amazing like this, because if you've ever looked at a capsule from the inside, you'll actually see these raised areas where the bar would be, and then it dips down into where the sole is, and it's all very seamless, and I think that's what we're seeing here. coffin bone is sitting around here. Now remember, we're getting quite close now to the sole, and so the shape of it is starting to change and it's not taking up as much area. Although, look how much compact bone we've got here. And this is the deep digital flexor tendon, and this is the compact bone. It needs to be really strong. It needs to be able to hold that tendon incredibly tight in that area and not to let that tendon go. And so that bone needs to be amazingly strong. And that's what you're seeing around here. You're seeing compact bone where it's got strength, and this is spongy bone where it's got cavities inside it, so it's got lightness, but it's also very strong. And here is our blood vessel again, like I showed you earlier, and that's going to be that blood vessel called the terminal arch. Now, as we look at the back of the foot, we can actually see some white tissue here, and part of me is thinking, are we still looking at collateral cartilage? Well, I'm not sure that we really are now. I think this is more of a fascial type or connective tissue quite type of component in this. I don't think this is collateral cartilage at this point. I think this is more of a connective tissue type component in the back of the foot. As we look at the front of the foot, we can see again the lamina. As we look to the front of the foot, we can see the lamina, which again are pretty deranged as they were before. And I think as we're getting closer to the bottom of the foot, these lamina are going to become more and more deranged, because it seems as though that wedge that we get, like a wedge of cheese, is bigger at the bottom and it goes smaller as it goes up the foot, because where the coffin bone is rotating down, and that's where you get that odd shape like a piece of cheese. So as we get lower towards the sole, I'm expecting that this lamina interface is going to get wider and wider, and I'm expecting that we're going to see more and more of the yellow of the lamina serum coming in to try and hold this bone, this coffin bone, to the wall. So let's now look at slice number 9. So that was number 8. That was slice 8, and now we're going to look at number 9. So, number 9. It's changed again, hasn't it? Not massively, but we are seeing some changes. The coffin bone has changed a little bit more, and that blood vessel that I told you about earlier, you can see there it is in all its glory. And if I give it a prod, you can actually see the wall around that blood vessel, and you can see where it looks like it's branching off, or there's some sort of branch of blood vessels in the coffin bone. And what's amazing, there's actually a channel there. Can you see that? There's actually a dip in the coffin bone to allow the blood vessels to come through. Now we do see quite a few holes in coffin bones. I mean, that's quite a normal thing. We do see a lot of holes in coffin bones. That's quite normal. I'll just show you. So this is a coffin bone, and we're looking at it on a side view. And if you see, it's actually full of holes. Look, little ones here, bigger ones here. And there are quite a few around the perimeter at the bottom. And they are very important ones, because that is going to be the circumflex vessels that run around there. And they are critically important. And this is where you have a lot of issues with the blood supply around this area, around the circumflex, because this is the vessels that are going to feed the coffin bone and the tissues. And if this gets damaged because of toe first landings, then you're going to have all sorts of problems. So that's to show you a coffin bone with all the holes in it, to show you that it's quite normal to have that. Let's go back to our slice. Now looking at the back here, this is the heel purchase again around here, which is quite beautiful. And you can see the lamina really nicely through here. You can see the sensitive and the insensitive actually quite beautifully. And this is the very last part of the coffin bone. This is it. I can just about feel a bit of bone under there. Let's have a look at the other side. And this is probably this part here, we're not in bone anymore. We've gone through bone. This is the last part of the coffin bone around here, and so we're getting very close to sole at this point. So this here is probably sole dermis, which is or sole corium, which is the tissue which is just above the sole, which is going to nurture the sole. So we are getting very close now to the seat of corn in this area. Here is the lovely bar coming up through here. And again, we can see the frog in this area here. And this is going to be the collateral groove, just about breaking through again. So it's actually quite high in this foot, that collateral groove. And it does seem to be quite well protected by frog. Now, looking at the digital cushion through here, can you see it's actually quite thin at this point because we're quite a long way down in the foot. But look at this amazing area around here. Look at, it's almost like staining. And I've seen this before and often wondered what it is. But I'm thinking what it is that it's like a pigment from the frog, or it's something to do with the interface between the frog and the digital cushion. And if I move this around, it seems to be quite separate, doesn't it, from the frog? Really bizarre. I'm sure it isn't, but if you can see that I'm giving it a press. Very odd. But yes, look at the pigment around there. I think I'm going to get my microscopic lens on and have a look at that, because I think that's quite interesting. Whether it's pigment or whether it's frog tissue, which is just working its way through here, not sure.